Hey ho! Hello, loungers. I'll give people a few minutes to get here. Facebook has changed the way that it shows this, and so it's really hard for me to see if anybody is watching. So I'm going to also put this on my phone in the hopes that that will make things easier. Let's see, is it showing that I've gone live? Yes, and there are two of you here at least. Okay, great. Feel free to say hey in the comments um, and say where you're from. Let me know who's here. And of course, there's no way to check the camera in advance anymore. Ha! So I'll just look like I look. I am here tonight because, yes, I can tell people are freaking out. I've had my moments, and I am talking about the planet Mercury going into the sign of Taurus, which happened today. Mercury will be in Taurus until May 11th when it moves. Hey, hey, Houston, great. And Morristown, wonderful. Okay, so both places, New Jersey and Texas, my links. Good, good, good. Anyway, I'm talking about Mercury, planet of communication, moving into the sign of Taurus, and it's going to be there until the 11th of May when it flips into its home base of Gemini. Now, it's been recently in Aries, which is real feisty. It's, I'll go for your throat. I don't hesitate to say what I'm thinking, really impassioned, sometimes frustrated. Woo, hey, California, all right, we're coast to coast. That's so cool. We've got the East Coast, the Gulf Coast, the West Coast. Um, and more from Jersey. Okay, Jersey's proud. So Mercury does well when it's in an air or a fire sign, because if you think of the image of the god, he's got little wings on his cap, little wings on his slippers, his little booties. He likes to travel. He likes to move. He likes to be able to dart here and there. Taurus is the slowest energy in the zodiac. Sydney, hello, Belinda. All right. We're all okay. All right. We're international now. This is really cool. Good to see you, Belinda. Haven't seen you in a while. Uh, okay. So it's really good to, well, when Mercury changes signs, the way that we take in information and process it and send it out undergoes a shift. And it can be nuanced, but it's a big one when it goes from a fire sign into an earth sign, especially when it goes into the most solid, stable, slow moving energy in the zodiac. Now, there's a contemplativeness. I got a letter, I got fan mail years ago when I was a columnist for a weekly paper in Houston. I got fan mail from a guy who said he thinks like a cow, chews. And that's kind of Mercury and Taurus, taking your time, thinking about things, but definitely not moving quickly under normal circumstances. And you can use the keywords of Taurus for ideas of this, of what is going to be occupying the conversation right now. All right. Money, for starters. Money. Who hasn't been thinking about money lately? Their income, their resources, what in the world they're going to do for a living. Almost everybody I talk to, well, some people I know have jobs that are needed, will stay, and they're able to work remotely for. But I know someone else who's been given an early retirement package and doesn't know whether her job would even still exist if she decided not to take it. I know small business owners who are trying to figure out how they're going to handle bringing how they're going to keep their businesses open, how they're going to handle dealing with their employees. Others of us who are self-employed and don't have employees are just looking around like, well, where's the money going to come from? And some thought about, is there a different way, a new way we have to be approaching things? Money will be in the public discourse quite a bit. Money, who's getting it, where is it going? The economy being a driving force on one hand, and then people's actual stability on the other. Bringing this back to a more personal thing, Taurus also has to do with just in general, very practical, very concrete matters. Taurus is the show me sign. It's the prove it sign. It's I need to see, feel, touch, taste. I need it in front of me. Don't give me sweet nothings. Deliver. Um, so we'll be incredibly practical, incredibly concrete, incredibly focused on our own, the cost of things, our own bottom line, and our own toys. I don't know if any of you, I I'm going to doubt that you have. That there was an animated cartoon in the 90s that was briefly resurrected as live action in the last few years called The Tick. The Tick was a superhero, a gigantic man in a big blue suit. And when some alien force threatened the planet, the Tick got really, really mad and said, "You can't do that to Earth. That's where I keep my stuff." And that's very Taurus. That's very Mercury in Taurus. We will be thinking a lot about, like, where's our food coming from? How many of you have been having conversations with people about how you're going to get your food, where the local food sources are? I have one friend who has lives on a gigantic spread that had been an orchard in her family several generations back, and a gigantic community garden is there, and she has some empty plots and was wondering how she could find somebody to work that land and maybe provide food for the food pantries. Very, very practical, very concrete, and you might find yourself thinking about that. You might also be thinking about, how do I actually enjoy what I have? How do I use it? And how do I take control? I mean, if you read the news, you see that there is evidence of illness running through lots of meat processing plants. Now, I'm on the advanced guard of this because of something my cardiologist pushed me into a couple of years ago, and not for any philosophical reason. I've been living a mostly plant-based existence for a couple of years now. I still enjoy meat, I like it, but I have recently lived just fine without it, and you might find yourself thinking about things like that. I don't know if you've thought about what can you grow. I mean, not everybody can. I personally have a horrific track record with plants, but even I took inspiration from a video I got from the State Fair of Texas, which I went to for the first time in decades last year, and I have, can you see it? I'm sprouting microgreens. This is one of the bins. Really simple, basically foolproof. Put a bunch of dirt in a plastic container. See, you can see the sprouts, you can see the roots. Bunch of dirt in a plastic container, sprinkle a bunch of seeds in the dirt, put a wet paper towel over it, and this is 8 days out. I planted these a week ago Sunday, and the paper towel I finally took off. I've got several of these. I tried different types. I think those are lettuces. Gonna put them in my salads. That's just an example of something you might do, you might think about. These are possibly more, well, how to put this? I always look at the transits as, what in the world can you do with them? What can you do about them? So I'm just throwing out a bunch of ideas to you for ways that you might approach this. Now, if you've listened to my forecast for this week, you might have noticed there's some kind of unusual stuff going on with Mercury. It seems like nothing is happening the way we're used to it happening. And that's, of course, the case with this as well. Mercury in Taurus is going to make two outer planet contacts very quickly that are not comfortable ones. The first one is a square, which is a hard aspect that is a demand for action. to Saturn, who's the guy who says no, who says eat your vegetables, who puts a wall up, has limits. Hang on a second, I'll tell you when that is exact, because I can't keep all this info in my head. Saturn is, there's a square on the 29th. And Saturn has just turned retrograde at the first degree, at degree number 1, which is actually the second degree of Aquarius. And in early July, is going to scoot back into Capricorn. But for the next number of weeks, anytime a planet changes sign, the first influence that it's going to contact is Saturn, which is an influence of constraint, of limitation, of no, of adulting, of act responsibly. It's containment, it's restriction of some sort. So on the 29th, Mercury hits Saturn. We could hit a wall. We could hear something, think something, read a message, get information that causes us to get serious about how we're going to set up things. Saturn in Aquarius has a lot to do with our communities and our networks. And when Saturn went into Aquarius, that almost exactly coincided with this concept of social distancing and lockdowns. And you'll notice that people are getting increasingly antsy about them, that they're like really not, they're trying to find ways around them, or they're getting tired of it. And we are hearing a gradual rollout of times when different levels of normalcy are going to start coming back into our lives. So around the 29th, we might hear something that makes us go, uh-oh, this is something I need to take care of, or I've been putting this off, or, ooh, okay, this thing that I wasn't thinking about really is an issue in my life and I have to deal with it. It doesn't have to be bad. It is motivating, I will tell you that much. And then the second thing that happens is that Mercury is going to meet with Uranus in Taurus, and that will be on the 30th. I couldn't read my scribbles there for a moment. Now, Uranus has been in Taurus since the middle of May 2018. They're seemingly incompatible energies, all right? Taurus, really slow. Uranus rules Aquarius. Have I said that sign name in the last couple of minutes? Yes. Saturn is there. So, and Saturn and Uranus are the two rulers of Aquarius. Saturn is the traditional ruler. Uranus is the modern ruler. So Uranus in Taurus is really antsy, itchy, jiggly energy. It's like sticking lightning into the ground, electricity into the ground. It requires letting go of things. It's like jolts, innovation, inventiveness, knocking viewpoints in different directions. Mercury and Uranus both have to do with our minds. Mercury is how our conscious minds work. Uranus is what's called the higher mind. It's like putting a lightning rod out and just having insight come flying down into us. So Mercury conjunct Uranus, some way of looking at things is going to blow open. Some piece of information could be a game changer. Don't fear this. It could be that the way you look at something suddenly opens up. Uranus always brings liberation. You might not like it when it happens, but there is some way in which you're being freed for something. So if you've got problems, if you're thinking like, oh my God, how am I going to fill in the blank? How am I going to pay for X? What's going to happen with my job? Where's the money going to come from? Oh my God, what if I'm on unemployment now and then the emergency is lifted in my state and I have to choose between, I have to go back to work. I have to choose between feeling safe and going back to work. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? You can embrace the insightfulness, the inherent ability to, or openness to aha, and a different way of looking at things. That will be happening with Uranus meeting, Uranus and Mercury meeting the tick. Oh, someone did love the tick. Okay. Sorry, I'm scrolling down now. Someone else has just ordered seeds. Hang on. Oh, and New Zealand is now in the house too. This is great. Okay. So, um, don't fear this, okay? Don't fear this. Stuck situations are going to get blasted out. Okay, what does this do for Geminis? Okay, so if your natal Mercury is in an air sign, or let's even say if it's in a fire sign, if it's in something that's used to being able to dart around fairly easily, and then the general order of things is pay attention to what's in front of you, pay attention to the details. A couple of things here. We've had an immersive course in the last few weeks in living more slowly, in uh, everything kind of coming down to the moment. Even people with air sign Mercuries. I have an air sign Mercury. I've been busy. I've had stuff that I've been doing every single day, but my experience of time is much slower, and I would bet that has been the case for many of you, and much more present. So, even if you are an air sign Mercury, even if you are a Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury, you can benefit from this. Gemini is what I call short attention span theater. And I have something in Gemini, so I can say this, all right? Um, but there has been an influence lately that's been saying, look at what's right in front of you. And now with Mercury moving into Taurus, our minds will be oriented toward what is right in front of us. Here on the mundane plane, the information that's at our disposal will be that way, the messages, conversation topics, and we might be starting to move around a bit. I know some people are, getting to go back out or be out and about a bit more, but there is a slowness to it, a deliberateness to it, and a sense of enjoyment and savoring it. Taurus is into the sensual experience of life. If you haven't had access to something and you get it, I think you're going to be hyper aware of it. For example, very few restaurants in my town have even been offering takeout. I have a neighbor who exists on Chinese takeout. He has been bereft for weeks. It sounds petty, but it's been part of the fabric of his life. That's what he does. I got a text from him today, ecstatic, because the closer of the two Chinese restaurants in our town has signs of remodeling, and they're moving around the front of the house to be set up for takeout. So he now sees that, and I guarantee you when he brings his first order of mushu pork home or egg foo young or whatever it is he feels like eating that day, he's not going to gulp it down, and it will taste better than it has in a long, long, long time because he won't be used to it and will not be taking it for granted. This is your metaphor, okay? You shiny objects people, you can deal with this for a few weeks. Mercury will be in your sign on the 11th. It darts through. It's going through three different modes of expression in May. Taurus briefly, Gemini briefly, and then it's going to go into Cancer, and everyone will be, all tenderhearted and emoting and taking things personally. Um, so look at how can you do something with this? You might find that actually paying attention to what's right in front of you yields you a benefit. It can be tasty. It can be nice. You can actually savor sounds. You can savor the sounds of the birds, savor music, savor artistry, savor the sensation of being in your body when you're doing yoga or exercising. And you might have information coming to you when you are connected to your body. And spoiler, this is part of what we're heading toward. Uh, this is part of a new or a different way of navigating reality, and that is being aware of the signals that your body is sending you very frequently. I think we've been living life at such a pace that we've been jamming the transmissions, but if you're quiet enough, you will get what is this exercise of which I speak. You need to clarify. I don't know which exercise you're talking about because I'm not sure exactly when you came in. Oh, I see. You're being silly. Yeah, It's called moving your body. It's called working out. Some of us have been doing it. I'm sorry, I'm responding to a comment. Uh, you will find that what we can do, oh, the birds are so much louder. They don't have much competition right now. Um, you will find that this time can help you connect your physical body to your communication processes so that you might have an idea like, okay, I think I'm going to do X. Like, okay, I think I'm going to go to the store now. And intellectually makes sense. Intellectually, there's no impediment to it. But as you start to get ready, something in your body feels sick, feels heavy, feels bleh, and you go, you know what? I don't even need to understand it. I'm not going to do it. And you might never find out why that wasn't the moment for you to walk out the door. But that's one of the potentials of what we're doing. We're moving from this long time out. It's been basically a training in a different way of navigating reality. Now, with Mercury moving into Taurus, we get to tie our brains and our communication processes into what's going on a physical level and not have a mind body disconnect as severe as it's been before. And I would put it to you that throughout your life, you have frequently been given signals from your body that you talked yourself out of, rationalized away, or simply ignored because they were inconvenient. And later you got feedback, something happened and you went, oh, I should have listened. Or even more likely, you got ill. So think about that one. So you air people out there who are freaking about what does it mean with Mercury and Taurus? Horrible things are going to happen to me. Uh, they're not. They don't have to. It's the way you look at it. And I'm going to throw another. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about Mercury and Uranus and how they're connected. They both have to do with information flow, but Mercury again is more conscious, although often it seems like it's unconscious, right? And Uranus is this blast that comes from God knows where. I've been thinking of them lately as Mercury is like us normally, and then Uranus is our crazy genius uncle, or Rick and Morty. There's one for you. Uh, Rick is the smartest man in the multiverse. Morty is his grandson. They run around and just absolutely ridiculous things happen to them, but they always come out okay by the end of it. They're inventive, they come up with solutions, and they come out okay. So, and the new episode of Rick and Morty starts on the 3rd, so that seems really appropriate for me as well. It's kind of extreme, and if you're a sensitive individual, you probably don't want to watch it. But if you have a wacky streak, there's nothing else like this. They go flying through multiverses, and sometimes there are like multiple versions of them from all the different universes, multiverses. dimensions, whatever. Um, you've been having aha moments. Good. Yeah, I had a client actually call me over the weekend wanting an appointment, and by the time I got back to him, he had had his aha moment and he had to go think and work through something before he was going to book. I was like, my forecast delayed an appointment. Oh well. Now, my goal is for you guys to be able to do this stuff on your own, actually. So that made me very happy. Um, Good to see you, Dana. Great. Bottom line is Mercury is not going to be in Taurus for very long. So don't fear it. Uh, when you hit the moment of frustration or the wall or the no or the uh-oh, I have to act like a grown-up later in the week, welcome it. It's it's for your benefit. How does this benefit me is always a really good mantra in this stuff. And maybe it'll force you to look at how else can you do something? How can you handle something so that it is you are taking care of yourself, being responsible for yourself. If this comes to you, if you get a wall or an uh-oh that has to do with how you get your income, uh, okay, process it emotionally, allow yourself to freak out. That's okay. And then say, all right, what are my alternatives? What's my plan A? What's my plan B? And I mean, I know someone who, like I said, who was given a retirement buyout quite unexpectedly on Friday. First reaction was, nope, not going to take it. Second was, to look at what else might be possible, to look into how much unemployment would be, to start comparing the numbers, seeing what the possibilities were, and then coming up with alternative one, alternative two, alternative three. Here are these various different things I could do. So started last week with, okay, I have this job and boy, I would sure like it if I got to continue doing it remotely. And that has evolved to, I don't even know whether my job is going to exist after June 1. Here are all the different things I can do. There's your inspirational approach if you get a piece of news later in the week. Now, don't go away from this thinking this means something horrible is about to happen to you. All right. That is not what I'm saying. You know, that is not what I'm saying. That's never what I'm saying. And then after this, when Mercury meets up with Uranus, then there's the way you've been looking at something blows open, or you get a piece of news that changes the playing field, changes the game. We can't predict it now. There's no way anyone can predict it if Uranus is involved. And if they say they can, I would say hooey, okay? there's your measuring stick. Um, this can only open you to other things, other ways, new ways. We're not going to, everyone keeps talking about, okay, we're going to go back to normal. You know, we're not going back to the way we were. There will be many different aspects of life that are forever different. And so now, here's the bottom line. We get to make things up differently. Yeah, there are constraints you have to live within. Yeah, there are certain rules of reality, obligations, responsibilities, things you need to do. There are some basic rules of playing nice as a human being that you're going to want to stick with, I am betting. But beyond that, make it up. Old ways are not going to control. You see it on a daily basis. So look for different ways that you can do things. And an image I go back to a lot, and this may be apocryphal, is after the Bastille was stormed, that was a prison, and the walls were torn down. Supposedly, there were people who continued to stand in the confines of the rocks because that was what they knew. They did not know, they did not really know they could step out and go into the streets. So don't you be standing in the rubble of the Bastille if it blows open, okay? You make a run for it. You run for your own green, beautiful horizon, preferably with fresh growing food and whatever your favorite little earthly comforting treats are, whether they're chocolate or a bottle of wine or your teddy bear or pasta or a nice green salad. I don't care what. It's going to involve food to some extent. I'm just saying. So before I shut this down, if you have a question or some clarification that you want, or not a question about your own chart, please type it quickly in the comments, and I will see if I can deal with it. Anybody? Giving you a moment. Do 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 do. Here, I let you see my lovely microgreens again while we're waiting. Microgreens, microgreens. They still got time. They got to have some more. All right, I am not seeing anything. Thank you all for showing up. Up, yep. Oh, I love seeing names I recognize. Means a lot to me. Thank you, thank you. Uh, if you do have a comment or something, feel free to put it in. I will look at the comments afterwards. And now I think I'm going to make a. I love you. Deal with that. Yeah, well, I have to deal with that on a constant basis. Oh, okay. So someone said that she asked somebody, a deceased relative, questions in her dream, and then got answers, but she doesn't remember any of it. So just basic thing about programming your dreams. You can go before you go to sleep. Oh boy. Before you go to sleep, ask for a dream on, and then put the subject, whatever it is, and then specify two things. One, that it come in language that you understand. That's important. And two, that you remember it. What about the USA? Well, hello, hello. My stage niece has arrived and a good friend. What about the USA? We have really startling information coming out that's going to shake up our concept of leadership, and there will be blasts and shockwaves about the economy, and some things being workable and some things not being workable, and a lot of talk and a lot of pushing on that, and that Mercury Uranus conjunction directly affects our concept of leadership. Don't think you have any clear. Do not worry. Okay, keep a vision of the truth coming out. What are we talking about? Oh, we'll have to discuss. Okay, someone has just come in at the end. We're talking about Mercury and Taurus, and Mercury meeting Saturn, and then Uranus. Um, this next stretch is going to be really pivotal in national politics in the US. That is what I will say about that. I'm happy to give a class on it. I have before. There's more to say. That's what I'll say at this point. And Australia, Tasmania is now checking in. This is great. Unfortunately, you guys, I'm about to sign off because we're at half an hour. If you have a question you want to dump in other than what are we talking about, I will look at it. But otherwise, I'm going to shut this down, and it will be up it should be up immediately for you to be able to look at it. I will save the video. I think it's really cool. I think this is the first time I've recognized every single name in the comments. This is wonderful. So, yay. Thank you all. I know it was short notice. I woke up with the nudge like, you need to do this. You will wake up with nudges saying, you need to do this, and you will do it, and you will just kind of do it simply and roll it out and not think about it 15,000 times and not worry about it, because advanced planning, not doing that right now. No one is. So sink into the moment, take your focus and put it right in front of you and deal with that right now. And if you haven't read the book Ferdinand the Bull by Munro Leaf, that is your assignment. I believe it is still available. It's extremely short. Okay, thanks a bunch. Bye. Bye.